Today we want to really learn from these panelists. I'm going to do a short wrap-up of encouragement for you, and then we'll go outside and have some wine and beer compliments of the team at Equifax. We need one last set of polling. Would you pull out your app? Here we go. What marketing channel is the best at driving showroom traffic? This is your opinion. You could be a vendor or a marketing manager or a dealer. Just answer that question. What is the best marketing channel? If you just had to pick one best channel. Okay, Google is in the lead. Social media getting a little activity. Cable is up and down. Oh, there's a radio fan. There it is. The radio came into play. That was from the two people who are from KW. No. Okay. What's SEO? Well, that would be like Google advertising, you know. There's only one search engine, really, but, you know. I should have had SEO on there. You're right.
What happens if you ask the salespeople what delivers the most to the showroom?
Yeah, wow. What would the salespeople, you can just yell out something. What would salespeople say drives the most showroom traffic? Holy shit, the audience came alive on day 2 at the end. Mark, thank you. Mark, thank you.
Well, what if you looked at CRM? What does your CRM say where the most traffic came from?
All right, here we go. So, what are we learning? Balloons, the balloons and the monkeys. Thank you, David. All right, second question. How do you source walk-in traffic that is not in the CRM? Someone who walked in and they didn't have an appointment. Do you give them a checklist? I've seen this of like, this is the Auto Trader logo, the Cars.com logo, and you ask them to check off the sites that they visited. Do you have some verbal questioning or interrogation with a light? And we honestly, Brian, we don't source because it's complete shit, and we're not going to do it. Let's see what we got. And we know everyone's asking the same questions in the exact same way. That's every single time. It's very consistent because once you train an employee at a dealership to do something, they never vary from that. All right, verbal questioning. Most of you, when someone walks in that doesn't have an appointment, the salespeople are trained to ask, what brought you in today? Okay? How would you describe your online communications, meaning your BDC, CRM, with customers and the handoff to the in-store experience? So use some words now. We're in a word cloud. What describes how your dealership or dealership group deals with leads, appointments, and what happens when they walk in? It gets better, I'm sure. This just motivates some really sick people to start. And I'm so glad that Chip Dorman is not texting at this point. All right. Based on that word cloud, how would you rate our processes? We've been talking about data and optimize our marketing data. Are we seeing that all the data optimization and attribution that we may do could just get blown up by bad process? Do you see that? Cancel. I'm not really sure what cancel means. Blows. Okay, so blows is, we can tweet that out. How is that handoff? It blows. Penguin! All right, here's my point. Ladies and gentlemen, as I was leaving, Darren Haygood pulled me over and said, Brian, great conference. He says, don't forget to emphasize one thing. You're working with smart people, and here, is the conversation about marketing and attribution. But more damage to our return on ad spend than anything happens because of bad process. Do you agree with that? So I'm not saying that we're going to add that into the Automotive Analytics and Attribution Summit. No, we cover that in our event in Napa. But these gentlemen up here have all different viewpoints or experiences on how to bring showroom traffic. We have one last poll question. What company logo was on David Metter's hat this morning? What company logo was on David Metter's hat this morning? Just trying to see if you're paying attention. David, this is very important. This is like a vote of confidence.
I know, I see that.
Let's see. What logo was on David Metter's hat? Yeah. Okay. What logo was on David Metter's hat? I have a feeling that C is going to be growing really quick there. They're jacking with you, Dave. Look at that. See, I knew it.
How many people from Cox are here?
Yeah. So, some fun. Could you just play that homepage slide so everyone knows who the panel is? Just on that same deck. That would be good. What I'd like everyone to do, starting with Mark here. Great. Mark, could you just give a quick overview? What's the elevator pitch? What does LotLinks do? And we'll just go down the line here so everyone knows kind of which perspective you're coming from today.
Thanks, Brian. So LotLinks, really what LotLinks delivers is marketing specific to the individual unit or to your piece of inventory there. It's really, the platform delivers highly engaged, low funnel shoppers to a unit and gives you the ability to organize campaigns and units into campaigns that allows you to execute depending on what your strategy is. If it's new units in this particular market area, if it's this model or et cetera, if it's used and you're trying to hit a price point, et cetera, the platform gives you the ability to target your marketing dollars by unit there. When you look at your marketing through that prism, it's a completely different way to look at your marketing and your marketing effectiveness of how it's affecting and touching each piece of your inventory. Because you've got to sell every single car. That's your job. So,
great. Mark, pass it down. Michael?
Mike Wellington. Outsell is a marketing automation software company. We work with over 1,000 dealers in helping them do a better job at engaging with their consumers, their prospects, and ultimately their customers through the life cycle of the customer as opposed to just the life cycle of the vehicle. One of our key aspects of what is differentiating us is that we've spent a lot of time and money on building an artificial intelligence-based engine that allows us to listen to what consumers, 20 million consumers every night, we go through a processing exercise with 20 million consumers that we understand what they're doing inside the store through DMS and CRM data, as well as what they're doing on clicking, on communications that we send out, as well as third-party sites, and then we predict with AI models what they should end up getting, what they should receive either by email and now growing into social advertising. And then finally, we have a buyer alert set of artificial intelligence models that tell people when they're really ready to buy so they can start to sort out. We're based in Minneapolis, Minnesota, the bold north, where the Super Bowl is going to be in January, so come on up and see us.
AutoHook drives high-intent customers into showrooms, and we attribute those into sales either at the dealership or at competing dealerships. And we'll validate over almost 400,000 consumers in a showroom somewhere in the United States this year, which is a big number.
I'm a marketing manager for a dealer group out of DC. We have 24 stores, Baltimore, DC, and Richmond. Pretty much have my hands full 24/7, so well, that's my pitch.
Hi, I'm Gino Walsh, Director of Retail Operations for 15 store. We have 15 rooftops and about 25 brands, a lot of IHG, and I'm responsible for trying to rein in ad spend and hold people accountable, especially my vendors.
Andres de Villiers with NIR. In short, we measure what happens in the actual physical world. So everything that happens when you're not in front of your computer. We do this by measuring what happens with about 1.5 billion devices globally on a monthly active basis. And so if you're trying to understand who are the people that are going to your dealerships, how are they interacting when they're on your dealership, how long do they spend there, where else are they cross-shopping, and then using that to take back to your marketing strategy, it's a very different lens on the data that most folks have been using to date.
George Barrage, I'm the Director of Digital at Zimmerman Advertising. We're a Tier 2 and Tier 3 agency, but we also handle companies like Papa John's and McDonald's. And so we get a big aspect with a big social department, but at the same time, very bracketed off, but we have meetings on a weekly basis to see if we can best of product offerings to dealers that we can trickle down through what we learn in the Tier 1 and Tier 2 and the big retail outlets.
All right, thank you, panel. Here's the challenge. We're at the end of a 2-day conference, and a number of times people said, please give me some practical ways to take back, where do I start? And you've heard some of our panelists this morning say, get started with something. Work on one issue, frame it, put a solution together, measure it, and repeat that process. Ladies and gentlemen on the panel, there is a demand for these people to go back to their dealerships and increase showroom traffic. That's what a general manager wants. How do I get more bodies here on the physical lot? Andres, I'm going to start with you. NIR is a new company for me, and Tom Gage introduced me. What can you tell us in your world, because you work inside and outside automotive, of your company's ability to see which marketing investments touched a consumer that got them on your lot? There's been some challenges here about building effective device graphs over the last 2 days, and the problem with matching and match rates, something like maybe at best you can get 30 to 35% of the people in a data set to match back to some anonymous ID or persistent ID. Tell us a little bit about what you're seeing, whether it's in automotive or out, that seems to be effective in 2017 in getting people to show up.
Sure. So I came from the ad tech space before joining NIR. I spent about 11 years on that side, where I was mostly focused on digital footprints and identities, cookies primarily. When I got to NIR, that changed pretty significantly, because the way that we look at ID resolution is around the movement of devices in space and time, and how you can cluster those and then disambiguate it based off of certain signals that you're getting. So a good example of that is we have a strategic investment in our organization from Cisco. When we get Wi-Fi router data passing us pings from all the devices, for example, in this room right now, those are typically identified with a MAC address. If you were on your laptop at home this morning, you're going to be picked up through a cookie. If you're on your mobile phone and you're moving around, in downtown, and we see you through GSM, we're going to get you through either a subscriber ID or some other GSM signal. And then if you're in an app, we're going to get GPS coordinates tied to an IDFA or a Google Ad ID. So those are seemingly very disparate device identifiers that if you don't have an ability to see them moving together in the physical world, there's no way to tie them together. And so one of the big data science problems that we solve, since we're a platform, we're not a raw data collector, we pull all the data into the solution and then we join it, is by looking at how things move together. So what's interesting is if you see someone at home who's exposed to a media impression that you've put in front of that individual, we can actually look at the household where we saw that cookie connected, and then we can see which mobile IDs we see in that household, and then if someone from that household over the next 30, 60, or 90 days, whatever window you want to look at, eventually goes into your dealer or into a competitor's dealership, or if you're looking at it on a national level, which brands are they engaging with, you can really only do that by seeing how these devices move together in the physical world, because there's never going to be a connection between that TV impression or that digital impression from display advertising on a laptop to then the mobile ID, which is what you actually have on your person when you go into the dealership. And so really the only way to do that, and the reason I gave the context of the ad tech space, was my world prior to that was always in digital identifiers in terms of web-based advertising. And as soon as I went to Near, I really understood, hey, the key to unlocking this is looking at how things move physically throughout the world and whether they're active and passive in nature. And then you do that enough, you can actually join all these IDs together. So we've seen a lot of effectiveness outside of the automotive space. We work with a lot of publishers on the broadcast side that know household level data in terms of advertising. We can actually connect at the home location with where those impressions were served, say, hey, these are the identifiers of the mobile devices in that household, and then was there an explicit action after that went into a QSR or a car dealership or whatever that advertiser's objective was.
Okay. Panelists, what are you finding effective in increasing showroom traffic or measuring that increase in showroom traffic? Is there any practical things that they could move along from your experience, from your testing, that can give them more confidence that their marketing is working to generate a visit?
So, Brian, I'd kind of break that into two buckets. The first bucket is understanding at a process level, at a CRM level, what's happening today in the dealership, what I'm doing with the traffic that's coming in the store, what's my close, what's my follow-up, all that. Put that in one bucket. The other bucket really becomes, what am I doing from a marketing perspective-wise to drive that into the store? And when you look at the marketing, as I said kind of in the opening there, when you look at your marketing and how it's touching your vehicles, because that's why people are coming in, is to look at a specific vehicle. When you look at how the marketing is touching the vehicles, what we found and it took a few years to kind of uncover this and really come to the aha moment, which for LotLinks happened a couple years ago. The traffic or the VDP views that happen for all of us in our store, we tend to see those VDP views bunching up at about 20 to 25% of the inventory. So think about it. You got 100 vehicles on the lot, 20 to 25% of those vehicles is where 80% of your traffic is really going to. Now, our jobs, as I said earlier, our jobs are to sell every one of those cars. So what do I need to do? And I think that's really what helps kind of disperse that traffic and get incremental lift or incremental traffic into the store, is the ability to take my marketing spend and actually organize a campaign or a strategy around it and get going behind the different units and things that I need to move. If we're a domestic franchise and I've got not domestic, but if I'm a mass market brand, I've got stair-step programs and incentive programs, and I've got MSR market share stuff I need to achieve, et cetera. I mean, all of these things give you the ability to kind of take what some of the business needs are from a profitability standpoint, or it's market share, whatever, sales effectiveness perspective, and then I can start organizing, being very tactical about what I'm doing there. But all of that works great up to the point where I've got a CRM process that matches it up. So, there's an adage out there, it's chaos meets opportunity. Sometimes in the car business in some of our stores, it's flipped, right? It's opportunity that meets chaos, and that chaos part is when the customer arrives at the store if we don't have a good organized process about what's happening there. And in today's shopping environment, a customer really we have to be, from a retail perspective, really agile in bringing the customer through our shopping process at different points depending on where the customer's at in their shopping process. If they're at the research and inform stage, or are they at the ready to pull the trigger and commit stage?
And for those of you who are not familiar with LotLinks, you may have missed the beauty of what Mark said, and because he was talking really fast. But no, here's my version that I like to tell. If you look at all your inventory and found out that 80% of your ad budget is going to 25% of your units, the majority on the other tail, there's a whole section, 30, 40, 50% of your cars, based on the targeting you're doing, are not getting enough views to turn quickly. For most ad tech companies today, outside of lot links, they don't look at it this way. They go spray, and I'm just going to generate your ads for every car in stock. And what ends up happening is that there's a whole neglected set. So if you want to increase showroom traffic, you should understand that your advertising today is orphaning a whole group of cars. And if you don't have an ad tech platform that can specifically target moving those cars, you will not increase showroom traffic to the full potential. And that's why that product is really important for increasing showroom traffic. Mike, outsell, as I've learned from your technology, is increasing showroom traffic because you're tracking all the engagement points. Did they open an email? What did they do in that email? What did they do on the dealer's website? What did they do on off websites? Could you give this audience, because we've heard of theory, but you've put together a lot of the pieces that we've talked about of bringing consumer, multi-touch, multi-device data into a matching system. Compared to everyone here does email campaigns pretty much. What's the lift? If you wanted to leave this group with some message, when you start putting in AI, when you start doing machine learning and process all these data, what type of lift in showroom visits can, an old school channel like email marketing actually see a lift from?
There's so many statistics that they could go through. Is that, I mean, we see, for example, in some of our models on buyer detection, that the more you understand about a consumer, the higher the conversion rates are. And I'll give you some examples. Our old models that were really based on A/B testing, were pretty effective. A couple years ago, we started to roll out AI models. We saw an increase of anywhere from 150 to 300% increase in conversion rates to ultimate sales. And what's really gotten interesting is that we're able to take multiple data sources. So it could take DMS, CRM, click data, demographic, psychographic data from third parties, and you start to combine, 7 different pieces of data and monitor a consumer's behavior. We're seeing 1,492% increase in our latest model in buyer detection. And now you have to understand that these percentages, could be like, going from 0.5% to 2 or 3% conversion rates, but it's meaningful.
Right.
And it's if anything, there's so much power inside of your data related to, I think, your most important asset. It's not your brick and mortar that's your biggest asset. It's your customer base. And being able to keep in contact with that customer base on a regular basis and understanding what the signals are telling you of what they're doing inside the store or in the virtual world is critical, especially as the market starts to go to, it's not going to continue to be at the same levels. So focus on your customer.
So just an informal poll. Be honest. No one will say anything outside of this room. How many of you on a regular basis just email your DMS or CRM with the same offer without any distinction on where they are in the buyer's cycle, what they've done on your website, or what they've done on previous emails? How many of you are just sending that shit out? Thank you, thank you, thank you. You want to increase showroom traffic? One of the things that you should understand is what Outsell's doing, and more importantly, what data could do to drive smarter, appropriate marketing messages. We're going to just go down the line. David, Auto Hook is a unique product. Some of the things that was pretty amazing that we didn't cover this morning, but when someone sees an incentive like a gift card to come in for a test drive, do you think they fill out that form data with fake information? What do you think? To get that $25 gift card, do you think that they put in jacked up information? David?
No.
Okay, there we go. So
There's
so,
like it's a 0.3% fake or bad information, right? It's like you talk about like the greatest cleansing tool of all time in auto. It is it, and it was never meant to be that. But it's interesting what people will give you when you offer them something for nothing. And so I joked. I didn't joke. I actually said it earlier. Like 400,000 consumers this year will go into a dealership somewhere because of that, and that's why we have the sales match ability that we do, because we get that accurate information. But the coolness is, it's similar to what Mike does, and from an inventory standpoint, what Mark does is you have to have like something compelling and different for each and every person because of their behavior, their path. Whether they came from a third-party site or they went through a certain series of inventory views on your site. That's, we take all of that and we figure that out on behalf of our dealerships, and we continue to do that to the point where we get, 42 and 43% showroom visit rates from a lead form, where normal you see 16, 17, 18% show rate from a regular internet lead form. And so when you start applying that, to the behaviors that are happening within those site visits, that's when you start to see some really cool stuff.
So David, for people who are not familiar with all the aspects of your product, how many of you have CRM data, leads in there, they're active in market, but your people have given up on them? Okay? If you could present them a compelling offer to come in, and it works to increase showroom traffic, would you be a hero? David, talk about what you're seeing, especially in reactivation and cleaning up data hygiene. If a marketing manager said, I need to increase my showroom traffic, what have you seen through your solution that could help?
Well, I'll make it a general solution. Anything that you can do with reanimation. You guys saw some of the numbers that I showed earlier, where on day 8 to 14 is really kind of that you'll lose them, right? And then it just gets worse as it goes. We did some really cool stuff with Dealer.com with one of our manufacturer partners, about a year and a half ago, where we used that reanimation with some direct offers that we did, but then we worked with them on some retargeting on those same type of consumers, and saw great lift from what they saw, went to a site and converted, or even clicked through that ad unit and saw that. And all of those happened. They were 30-day-old plus. It was like you talk about the ultimate day-old bread. They were all customers that were at least 30 days past that first lead submission form. So engaging those customers, if I'm a dealership, no matter if you incentivize them or not, I don't want to say I don't care, I do care, but I would focus on some kind of a reanimation, automation solution to drive those consumers back in. Because if you didn't catch the data where it says these customers are buying, then you're missing out and your competition will win.
And again, since I have deep product knowledge with many of these companies, I want you to understand is you have these people in the 30-day neglected but still in market because your process didn't effectively connect and you need some automation. Same thing with lot links. You're spraying all of your cars on AutoTrader, Cars.com, Car Gurus. You're doing dynamic ads, but there's a whole section of your cars that are neglected. They do not have 1 VDP view in this month, 2 VDP. It's not going to sell like that. And again, automation comes in and reanimates the opportunity for those cars to be connected with the consumer. Outsell doing the same thing, meaning at some point, our industry has to believe that in order to increase showroom traffic, we have to start using AI, machine learning, and practical examples to make amends for the human gap, the training gap, the turnover gap, the technology gap that you had exactly today. Lauren, with how many stores again are you responsible for?
24.
24 stores. Easy job, right?
Cake.
When you talk to your general managers, is that a question that they normally ask, Lauren, I need more showroom traffic? And how are you responding? Please, to the vendor community here, what's frustrating you for the she-he group? Are general managers looking for you for solutions, or are we just kind of raising our hands and just say, throw some more shit on the wall and hope it works?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a combination. Depends. You know, we have a variety of different kind of personalities, within our group. You know, there are some guys that definitely have a digital focus and are more proactive and want to start taking advantage of these technologies that are out there. But then we have some other guys. You know, one of the struggles is I don't have the resources for educating on all of the, you know, the value of, you know, this data and what we have access to and how we can leverage it. But a lot of times, you know, I get the typical, we had a bad month, I want to cut something. So I have to go in there and try and explain to them the value in what I'm seeing in terms of all the metrics and the engagement. And, you know, that's my focus area. But I think it's getting more education and resources from my vendors to help, you know, go to bat with me and explain, you know, justify what we are spending on and maybe help, you know, analyze that data or what we do have at our disposal to really make some, you know, better, more aggressive decisions.
You know, I didn't think of that response, Lauren, but that's beautiful. When you think about it, what is a lever? I'm thinking about tactics and strategies, education. Meaning, Lauren, am I hearing you that general managers could be making decisions that are actually hurting their showroom traffic, but it's because of a lack of education?
Absolutely.
And you have a great product, but the vendor has not provided enough leadership and education to allow you to execute on that because the GM has the final say.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's, you know, it's one of those things where a lot of, you know, any of these strategies that I'm implementing, they have a very hard time visualizing it or understanding how the consumer is engaging with it. It's just totally not on their, you know, their radar. So for me, it's really explaining the whole customer journey process, but also, you know, what they can expect as a result of implementing these tactics.
Great.
I think when you look at
Hold on, microphone. It's bad enough you're losing your voice already, Mark. I mean, come on.
and we've just started.
Yes.
I think when you look at, you know, when we did that survey at the beginning here and talked about, you know, what do we see drive traffic and what do salespeople drive traffic? Look at the difference between those two things. Go on the showroom floor and ask the people what's driving traffic. They're going to tell you it was that newspaper ad or that television ad or, you know, it's those instant response mediums or the mailer that you did. I mean, how many of you send a mailer out and all of a sudden that's the best thing ever and I need to do less of that? I don't think, to your point, the educational thing is probably the biggest thing is, you know, a lot of people that come up through the car business that are managing dealerships today, I used to say kind of, think about when they were on the line selling cars and what the CRM system was back in 1990 or 95. Everybody familiar with the Stuker box? I mean, that was CRM back in the day, right? And that's how they understand or ran their business back in the day. So today, you know, what is CRM, what is digital marketing, and how is it affecting and influencing traffic and stuff? You bring up a great point, because that's really what it is understanding the influences to a sale today are dramatically different. The shopping experience today is dramatically different. Earlier today, we were talking, you know, how many customers start out on a dealership website and go to the OEs. I was at JD AMR a couple weeks ago in Vegas. JD Power says 20% of customers go to a dealership website before they go to the OEM website. It's like 8% of the people go to an OEM website, but you know, it's oftentimes we get that funnel flipped upside down.
And I want to just, so those of you who don't know Mark was executive leader at Lithia's, a whole digital marketing team, and recently went over to LotLink, so he understands both sides. I think that's really important. One of the things that we heard from all the speakers and you, that DMS data, if we were really leveraging our DMS data to do things on Facebook or to create lookalikes, but if a general manager has no clue how that even works, if you said, hey, I need to do a test with your DMS data, they might say, you're not touching my DMS data, right? Gino, from your side, what are your store managers asking you for to increase showroom traffic? What's the friction point that the vendor community has to help you resolve in order to be more effective in generating more showroom traffic?
I think the data is overwhelming for most of these general managers. You're looking at general managers that started off on the line, just like you were talking about before, and most of them aren't college educated, and then you start throwing all this data at them, and it really just confuses them before they can even make a decision. What I would do, and this is what I've done myself personally, is that if you can't create a business around the data that you're getting from your vendor, then that's probably not the right data that you need. So we actually have a strategic partner, and they're here too, but they give us the data from what our marketing comes back to, and we use Team Velocity just so I can make that evident. And not only do I get how my marketing worked, I actually see what those people did that were unconverted conversions. And so we went from a kind of a test pilot with 2 of the stores, and we brought in probably about $7,000 the first month. Right now, last month, with 20 people, we're moving it to 40, and my cost basis is somewhere around $40,000. We had $210,000 worth of gross profit from it. So we've done over $1 million. So that's a business off of the data. So it's great to get data from a lot of people, but if you can't build the business off the data and you can't put in a process around the data, then it's just more noise. And I know that we're at the beginning of the beginning. So some of this data will make more sense to us as we start digesting it over a long period of time. But reports are great. They are the game film of what happened to you last month. But if you can't have real-time data that you can look at and it's actionable, viable actionable data, I can literally look into what they have as an opportunity dashboard, and I can see that 6 months ago they looked at a service special, and then they looked at 3 months ago they looked at an A4, and then last week they looked at lease specials. And I can pick up the phone, I can employ people that can be customer experience reps to kind of have that conversation and just open it. It's not even like, hey, we saw you on the website. It's not one of those.
Creepy,
No,
not to be too creepy.
But we can open it up from a customer experience situation, because a lot of us dealers, where we make the mistake is we do great from 0 to sale, so like in the first 30 days, and then we get our SSI report after 7 days, and then we just drop off. And when you don't have something that's in place that's tracking your customers and you're not following up with your customers, somebody else is. And that's why I built the business around that data, because I sat as a BDC manager. I mean, I started in a double-wide trailer. That's where I started in the car business.
You kind of look like a
Yeah,
double-wide guy.
that's what I was. And I worked my way up. I had one of the first splash pages with Auto Trader. I remember telling my rep, who's here right now, who works for Edmunds, I said, Auto Trader is going to go away, the magazine. And she was like, no way. And so I had one of the first dealer.com websites for an independent dealership. And I've just embraced technology, and I've embraced the digital side of it. But what gets lost is the data has to have some viable, actionable metrics to it. It can't just be data for data's sake.
And that's why I love David's presentation this morning, because what he shared makes absolutely complete sense to a general manager, right? This is how many leads Brian Pash handled. You gave him 100 leads. He closed 17 of them. You thought he was a superstar. But 25% of the leads that he had in his bucket bought the guy 5 miles down the road. That a general manager can understand. Does Brian have too many leads? Is Brian looking for low-hanging fruit? Is there a process? That's actionable data. Andres, you know, I wish we had more time, and I hope next year when we do the conference we can learn more about NEAR. But one of the things that Gina was talking about is this idea within the Team Velocity dashboard. They have the ability to take a look at what your consumers are doing, your customers, and if they're back in the market, to do that friendly phone call. Andres, tell us for a dealer group, maybe not a single point store, a dealer group that has, say, 20 stores in a market concentration. With technology today, with the DMS data from sales and service, would a dealer be able to see when their customers are shopping on competitors' lots through the technology that Near has or technology in partnership with others?
Sure. So short answer, and then the more advanced way of doing it is a little more complex. But the easy way to do it is you start defining audiences of anyone who actually walks on your lot or group of lots, if we're looking at a dealer group, and then measuring where do those folks go either prior to that visit or after that visit. And you can do 90-day look back, and then obviously moving forward, you can look in perpetuity. And so the idea there is to say, hey, where are people cross shopping? How far are they coming from their home to that dealership? What other dealerships are they visiting in that same visit? Are they going to competitive dealerships or dealer groups over the next few days? What sort of insights can you get in terms of the competitive set? Are they looking all in luxury brands and so forth? So there's a lot of lenses you can use on that data, but the easy way to do it is just literally creating audiences in the product and start tracking every device that goes there. You don't have to have a relationship with those customers to do that because you see the devices moving around through space and time.
And so, Andres, would that mean that what you mentioned earlier, the ability, as soon as a phone is in a Wi-Fi range, whether they log in or not, you can get their device ID or a beacon, right? Are we talking about Wi-Fi technology, beacon technology, a combination of both?
Sure, it's all three. So we have data coming from about 300,000 different apps, which is GPS based. We then have a telco that also took an investment in our company. We get GSM data there, which is really good for the gaps between the commercial places where there's Wi-Fi or the person's not using their phone actively. And then the third is obviously the Wi-Fi data. The Wi-Fi data is very accurate. If you as a dealer want in-dealer metrics as to where people are standing in your dealership, you can get down to 1 meter level of accuracy, but that's something you have to provision through your networking provider, which is typically Cisco, the one that we're partnered with. So it's a combination of the three because each type of data is going to have gaps. Some have higher level of frequency, some have higher level of fidelity and so forth. So you have to combine them all together.
George, Zimmerman has an amazing brand recognition. Jordan has done a great job of building this ecosystem. You deal with manufacturers, you deal with some of the largest successful groups, some of your customers are here. How are you helping your customers grapple with all the options on spending to generate more showroom traffic? What are some of the things that you think are resonating?
What I think we do best, and it's what anybody should do now, is pay attention to making sure if you're showing up somewhere, it's done in the tonnage range. And it's something that we talk about as a company with not automotive, but we talk about it with anything. When Papa John's is launching a new pizza for $10, you can't watch a football game without seeing a Papa John's commercial because they're pushing it. You as a local dealer, you need to find the mix that works best for you. And as a company, we look at everything. There's some markets where Pandora has a huge, enormous reach. So we look at that. We look at CRM data. We dig back into the stores, everything. We look at shows, appointments, sales. That's everything we do and give you advice. But you have to look at AutoTrader as a tonnage item too. There's no point in putting your foot in the water if you're going to be on AutoTrader. And then when I look at your AutoTrader account with you and show you that your first car shows up on page 8, it's kind of irrelevant. Because if I'm looking for a Toyota Corolla and you're on page 8, I'm never going to see your car. So make sure you have a couple cars priced to the point where you're on the first page. And it's the little things like that you need to do. Radio works, TV works, but you got to know which radio works. I watch commercials all the time now just because I want to make sure what's happening out there. But 11 o'clock commercial back-to-back on your Toyota Corolla special makes 0 sense. Make sure you're on when, pay attention to the large companies. There's a reason AutoTrader, Cars.com, everybody shows up when there's a sporting event, right? Because that's what people watch live. Nobody else watches other live TV. Same thing for radio. Radio is something you listen to Monday morning between 6:30 and 8 because you want to make sure that they tell you about the accident on the way to work. On the way home, you do the same exact thing. But you really have to look at everything as a piece, and you also need to quit arguing with each other as dealers and saying that you're the cheapest car in town. You're racing to the bottom. You need to come up with a reason why I should buy a car from you. It's not because you've been in business for 80 years, because nobody really cares how long you've been in business, otherwise people would still go to Sears. So reality is you need to make it, hey, if I buy a car from you, I can pay $99 a month. If I buy a car from the other dealer, it's $99 a month. But you guys are going to wash my car whenever I want because you have a free car wash. You guys give a lifetime warranty, which is something the other dealer doesn't get. And you got to put those things on your website because every one of you guys, you're using your OEM site. So if I look at 5 Chevy stores in the market, every one of your websites look identical. Nobody on a website says, hey, if you want a blue F-150, we'll find it for you. Why? Why don't you tell them that? That way they know that you're the store that gives the car washes, you're the store that gives them this, you're the store that gives them a longer warranty, and you'll go find the exact car they want. Otherwise, they're going to go to the guy with the 500-pound gorilla floating on the roof that spends $500,000 a month advertising because he's just heard more. So make yourself stand out and make yourself stand out for good things. That's what I would recommend to all of you.
Well, I want to give an opportunity for Carrie to grab the mic, and this panel represents people who are in the weeds, working in the groups, and have unique solutions to drive showroom traffic. I'd love to know if there's any questions you had for our panel. Questions from the field? You can ask a question, Peter. There's no problem. We kind of love you. This is kind of like your job interviewing, I think. The vendors are like, hey, if he doesn't say the F word by the end of this thing, we could hire him. He's a little brash, but as long as he doesn't swear.
I got a question for Andres. Near is I have 50 questions. Technically, I'm just going to ask one. Because you guys are grabbing all this, I guess big data, the best way to explain it, it's location data. It's all over the place. It's unparsed, likely, especially the GSM side. I can only imagine because GSMs can be triangulated, so it could be all over the place, every 30-second intervals, probably with the telco, you'll get that long. So, why is that so loud? Hello?
Yeah.
What partnerships do you have today that work well with all that data? Because I can imagine how LiveRamp works with the IDs and everything. How can they ingest that and make it actionable today?
I think I understand the question, but the keys are, number one, scale, right? So if you're talking about which clients work well with us, is that the question? So clients that are looking at things a little more macro, like for example, a regional dealer group would be enough scale. I did a analysis of 3 dealerships in one area, and we were able to get significant counts of people visiting on property to be able to pull enough data out to see frequency of visit, how long they spent there, where they were commuting from. I would say anything less than that, it becomes very difficult because there's a lot of limitations there, right? For example, if the person doesn't have a connection through a carrier that's partnered with our investor Telstra, we're not going to get any GSM-based data. So that means if that person visits the lot, we either need to see them through Wi-Fi or see them through the lat longs. If they haven't opened any apps on their phone and they're not using one of the apps that we get 100% background tracking, which are things like your emergency apps, your driving safety apps, and so forth, we're not going to see them either. And if that dealership doesn't have Cisco networking, we're not going to see them. So we don't see everyone. You have to have enough scale where you can look at things at a little bit more of an aggregate level and make assessments. If it comes to types of clients that we're working with, we're typically working with the larger players in the space, that are more of a platform for each individual industry. Like, for example, someone like a Cox Automotive, they have a really, really wide reach in terms of who they talk to. In the publishing world, we're working with a lot of the tier 1 digital publishers for them to understand where their audiences go in the physical world. So it's really interesting for someone like a Condé Nast to know, hey, the 20 million people who read GQ, do they go to BMW or Mercedes dealerships at an increased rate? And then that's going to help them devise their sales planning as well as their targeting, and then even measuring the impact of the media that they're selling to those OEMs or to the dealer groups that they're selling to. So it's really at the scale level. I think at individual dealership level, partnering up at the tier 2 level makes a lot of sense. It does make a lot of sense at tier 1 as well for brands to know how people are cross-shopping amongst their competitive set. So I think scale is really the key there.
Great. Any other questions? We have time for another question. Anyone? They're just tired. Ladies and gentlemen, the people that were invited to sponsor this event, I don't see this group as a group of competitors. I see this group as a group of people who have the needs of the dealer community involved. Everyone's taking a little different approach. Some approaches will work in your culture, some may not. But remember this, there's 18,000 dealers. We can't win every deal. We can't be in every dealership. But I hope that you understand that when I talk about certain solutions, it's only because of one thing. If they work to help a dealer, I'll be the first to help them. Meaning, I want to promote great solutions. I can't wait to next year when we have some set-top box data. I'm going to share a couple things with you in a minute. There's a big announcement today in the cable industry. I'd love to bring in experts that are using cable data in an ecosystem. There's a lot of conversations. But I want to thank everyone who came up on our final panel and really challenge everyone here to leverage the relationships and the connections and the experts that are here to really make sure you're set up for 2018 for a great result. So would you give our panelists a great hand? Thank you.